All right, another episode of Monetize Mondays with David Asarno, Henry Kaminski. So we missed a couple of days, David. We missed a couple of weeks. You were traveling. We had the holidays, a lot going on, but we are back on track.
Happy New Year, because we did one right after New Year, and we're back live again.
Exactly. So when we were talking, say it again.
We're talking audience, right?
Yeah. So this came up over the weekend, believe it or not. One of my clients asked me, well, what should my front end offer be for my business? And I said, well, who do you want to serve? Who's your audience? Right? And I said, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's a matter of knowing really clearly who you want to help, who you want to do business with, and then creating what you need to say, do, act, whatever, to that audience to help them connect with you. So what do you think about that, David?
Well, I think that the first thing that someone needs to, and by the way, you had this conversation over the weekend. I had this conversation, as you know, on a mostly daily basis with clients. They're like, oh, I want to put out a funnel, or I'm going to build a website, and I want all these great things. And they get all excited, and we're like, well, who's your audience? Who's your avatar? Who are you targeting? What do they think? What do they look like? What kind of coffee or tea do they drink? And by the way, I'm on 5 days without coffee. Janai thinks I'm crazy. I'm on coffee, and you know how much I drink, right? But the reason we ask all these questions and the power of your information of connecting to your audience is how deep you actually go in getting their who they are, their profile, their psychological profile, their buying profile, everything about them. And the more that you know about that, the more you're able to actually make sure that you have a message to market match. And it's where I feel that so many people are off, whether they put an ad on Facebook, whether they're doing a Facebook Live. I mean, the question is, are you yapping out there in the wind, or are you connected to your audience? And so, it's a conversation on a daily basis. And I think it's something that most people think that they know. Oh, I know who I'm targeting. Well, how do you know? I just know. No, that means you're guessing. And they're taking a dart and just throwing it up there and hoping that it hits a target. And I think that I truly feel that one of the things that people need to do is take a step back and make sure that you know who you want to target, why you want to target them, and then you're going to have a lot more success.
Yeah. And I think if we take this conversation another level deep, let's talk about what Eugene Schwartz talked about in breakthrough advertising, and that was audience temperature, audience awareness. Would you talk to somebody the same way who knows nothing of you versus somebody who is familiar with you? Would you use the same language? Would you talk about the same conversations? No. And I noticed that a lot of people are, for lack of better words, going in for the kill too soon instead of building that trust, the credibility, the authority first, right, with their audience before they try to sell.
Sort of I mean, not to be crude, but it's sort of, someone going to the bar and meeting someone and saying, hey, you want to leave right now? But it's no different.
No.
It's no different at all in your marketing and advertising, and you turn people off very quickly. And you bring up a very good point. Warm market advertising versus cold market advertising. And they're two very distinct things. It's almost like, I'll give you an example. People today, we live in a society where people are text messaging. Kids do not know how to have a conversation. I mean, I feel really bad for them when they get out into the working world, because they don't know how to pick up the phone and make an appointment with someone that they don't know yet. And as you know, I mean, I built a business strictly pretty much on cold calls that I ended up doing $45 million annually. And so there is a very distinct difference with attracting someone's attention and building that relationship and rapport, cold market, versus someone who knows you. And I'll give you an example, when you're doing your Facebook lives all the time, every day, I mean, you're speaking to your audience. It's people who don't know you aren't going to necessarily, you may have someone who pops in and says, ooh, I like this. And yet, if you're going to connect with someone, you need to warm them up somehow first.
Yeah, for sure. And again, there's no right or wrong answer here as to who your audience is. So, for example, when I was talking to my client over the weekend, I said, do you want to talk to the newbie real estate professional who's just starting out? Or do you want to work with a more seasoned real estate professional like yourself and help them take their business to the next level like you're taking yours? You know, me personally, David, I like working with people that have very similar values, very similar likes and wants and desires as me. Because when I'm working with those folks, I feel like I'm working with a friend, I'm working with a family member, I'm working with somebody that, you know, I know, like, and trust. And it makes for better work. It makes for like less headaches, and I don't know, that's just me. What about you?
Well, you know, it's interesting. It's funny because I meet so many people, and if I didn't know them before, it's like I almost instantly know them. It's like I have that. I mean, you know that I have that with a lot of people. So, and I mean, I've had people that were cold calls that I literally stopped in that became multi-million-dollar clients and friends. And so I don't necessarily look at it this exact same way. And at the same time, because we're in an online world and society, and we need to be able to find out who that person is. If you wanted to find out what someone's values are, if you wanted to see what they like, well, besides going to their Facebook profile and seeing what they're posting about, I mean, by the way, in today's society, you can really find out what someone thinks by the things that they're putting out there or not putting out there. Or sometimes people are, you know, don't put a lot out there. But one of the things we're doing a lot with a lot of clients, and, you know, I'll give you an example, Henry. You know, we're having a meeting in about an hour or so with a client. You and I are, and we're talking about doing a quiz funnel on the front end, because they want to know who the people are, make sure that they're targeted and segmented the right way, making sure that there's a message to market match, make sure that based upon, and by the way, when we talked about doing some of the video branching, they're asking questions, and based upon what the person says, the next video speaks exactly to what they just said. So there's some advanced strategies that you can utilize today to warm up that audience member much faster. And some people are frankly more comfortable, you know, just speaking to someone who's 100% totally aligned with them, and that's okay. And it, you know, what it goes down to when you're building your business model, really thinking about who do you, just like you do, who do you want to do business with? Who are you comfortable doing business with? And making sure that you set everything up to attract that person to work with you.
Right. And some of you guys know this already, but one of the biggest shifts that I had inside of my business was when one of my mentors, Russell Brunson, mentioned to me how disconnected my personality was to my audience a few years back, when I was just a pretty website with pretty design work on it versus the person who I truly am. And when that came out, that's when everything changed. Well, and I really started to, I mean, it was crazy.
I mean, I've been on the phone with you with clients who say, I've been watching you for months. I've been watching you for 6 months. And then something that you just said today triggered something in me, and I knew I had to speak with you. And I've heard that. I've heard people say that to you. And when people, because we live in an instant gratification society and people hear build it and they will come, that means throw up a funnel, all of a sudden the millions follow. And that happens, although rarely. And many times it happens because people already have an audience to introduce that person into the funnel versus just launching something out cold where they're attracting a new audience totally cold. So there's a lot of value in someone finding out who you are, that brand, that messaging, that positioning, and then start communicating and then building that relationship with the people based upon value. And the more value you put out there, the more people who are going to come back to you. It could be a month down the road. It could be 6 months. It could be 2 years down the road. I mean, I have people that I do business with that I didn't push them. We had built a relationship over the course of years, and now they're clients. And so you have to identify, you really take the time to identify who you want to attract and make sure you're congruent with that.
Yeah, that's a great point, because it's you have to drink your own Kool-Aid, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it comes down to. And it's interesting. I'll open up a little bit deeper for you today, because I want people to understand the power of connection when it comes to people to people. And one of the things that I noticed over the few months that I've become extremely social on social media is that it holds me accountable for what it is that I actually talk about in my live videos. And what I mean by that is, if I'm out here preaching, or I'm out here, I hate to use that word, but if I'm out here telling you, everybody, my values, what I believe in, what they should be doing, how they should see the world, right? Then I better be freaking doing it too. And I have to tell you, ever since I've done that and I've become self-aware of how powerful that is, it has kept me so accountable for my actions, where maybe a few years ago I would have been like, you know what? I don't feel like doing that today. I'm not going to do it. Whereas today, I'm like, no freaking way. There's people counting on me. I just spoke about that on a live 2 days ago. How the hell could I be painting the kettle black, by not doing what I'm supposed to be doing today? And it's just held me so accountable for my actions lately. And ever since we become partners, there's certain days where I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just shot. Like, I'm tired, blah, blah, blah. And then I get that glip message from you like, hey, what about this? And it's just like, boom. And I'm off to the races.
It's my virtual jolt of French press.
So, just getting out there and letting the community, letting your audience hold you accountable, really. You know what I mean? Because my biggest thing is this, like, I don't ever want anybody to say one day, yeah, Henry does this, but his actions are completely different. I want it to be congruent. I want it to be exactly the same. So they know what I'm made of and what I'm doing, what my purpose is.
You bring up a good point. So when we get back to attracting your audience for everyone, find out who you are and be that, and make sure that you have that the people that you're targeting the right audience for you. Because if you're not, they're not going to stick around and they're not going to buy. And it's not just putting up a funnel. I mean, here's the interesting thing, and you and I've had client meetings with people. Like, they'll put up a funnel and they'll put up a video, and it's like we cringe. Like, would you buy from yourself? Well, I hate doing that. Well, you said you wanted this online business. You said you wanted to be able to attract people here. So here's something that I make, and you've heard me tell people this. If you want to create a message that talks to your audience, and people get nervous many times when they're on camera. I mean, heck, we're on camera now, and you're on camera all day long. I'll call you the bobblehead. I always call you the bobblehead because I think you walk around with your arm extended like this. You've got your phone, and you're like, you're just hey. But anyway, I joke with you on it, and you do what you tell people to do. And I also say, if so, you want to get on camera, it's really easy. Just talk from the heart, serve someone. And when you want to serve someone, it removes all the stress because now you're just serving someone and you're giving them value. And if you come from that point of view, it makes it much, much easier. And I mean, you've heard a lot of the doctors that I work with who came on that training. We talked about Facebook Live, and they're doing them every single day, and they're getting people to their events, and they turn people in, and, oh, I didn't even know you did this. And it's amazing what happens when you start, when you just start sharing.
I mean, David, how many times have we been on discovery session calls where the client or the prospect says to us, you know, I've seen you on live for a month now, and I feel like I know you even though I don't know you.
Oh, it happens all the time. And in fact,
that's the power, you know, that's the power of connection. And it doesn't have to be, you know, I say this, I don't know, here, let me just say it and then you could correct me if I'm wrong. Like this morning, I talked about how, on my live, I talked about how all of us are guilty for telling ourselves stories that aren't true sometimes. And a neat little way on how I get rid of those limiting beliefs out, or those limiting stories that sometimes creep into my head, how I get those out of my head when I feel them creeping in. And it really had nothing to do with business. I really kept business out of this live and just talked about how many times do we tell ourselves things that aren't true, and 99.9% of the time, those stories hold us back from something that we want to achieve.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those a story like that, somebody could connect with that on 15 different levels. And when you make that connection, that's what makes people say, hey, there's something about Henry, or there's something about David, there's something about Joseph that attracts me to them, you know? And so I want to learn more. And when you start there, when you treat your business like a human relationship, and like you said, you come from a place of value first, and you come from a place of serving, it changes the game.
And stories help connect people. Instead of just informing them, tell a story. I mean, one of the things that when you ask me a question, many times I tell a story about the past, or tell a story about a client or someone that we're working with. Mm-hmm. I'll give you the first time I experienced the power, and then it's, I think, a good thing to wrap up on, was 9 years ago, when I was in the franchising world. I was at a franchise show down in Miami, and there was these people who were doing videos for franchise CEOs, and they were going to be building this new channel that frankly never launched, but I got them to give me the video. And so we put that video on YouTube, and then we put that video on my the business website, the franchising website. And what happened changed. It was interesting because all of a sudden, Kevin, who was my franchise sales VP, would get all these leads in, and everyone would say, this is before funnels. This was like before funnel marketing even really existed. Mm-hmm. They said, oh, I watched your CEO's video, and I just knew I had to call you versus anyone else who offered it. And that shows the power of video and the power of connection. The funny thing is, if you Google my name and franchise today, that video comes up number one. I don't know how to get it. I don't remember the password to that YouTube channel to take it down. I mean, it is kind of funny when you think about it. Sure. But when I look at it now, it's had 3,200 views for a very short, specific niche, which is pretty high when people are looking for a certain kind of franchise in a certain niche. And that's where it comes up. Right. So, but that's the power of video, and everyone. And I just look because I look now just to see. Mm-hmm. So when you're looking at who your audience is and connecting with them, it's that message to market match. And if you have that, people will want to do business with you. They just don't know why. They're attracted to you for you being you. Right. And I think that's a good way to end. Be you.
That's awesome. Just be you, and really focus and spend the time on who it is that person you want to work with and you want to serve. And when you narrow that down, you'll know how to communicate with them.
Exactly.
So,
there you go, virtual fist bump.
Fist bump. So that's a wrap for this week's episode of Monetize Mondays. We'll get this up shortly on YouTube, and catch us next week on another episode. And so, David, I'll catch you later, all right?
Sounds good, man. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.